In order to make a change to any given page, we'll need to visit the page in the first place. So let's, for example, imagine I want to change some text on the About Us page. So I'll navigate to that page while logged into the CMS. And we can see on screen we have a body of text at the top of the page, followed by something other kind of box grid list thing further down. So in this case, let's keep it simple and say I want to add a line of text above this paragraph here. So what I'll do whilst on this page, I will press the edit mode button in the top left of the toolbar. And that will put the page into what's called edit mode, where I can see that I can now start mousing over pieces of content on the screen and start seeing different toolbar options when I do so. So with that, let's get a few buzzwords out of the way that you'll hear a lot during the course of this video series. The two words of real note here are what are known as blocks and areas. Blocks are different kinds of content types you can drag onto a page. For example, anything from like basic text content up to like YouTube videos and Google Maps and stuff like that. They are all different types of blocks that you can drag onto a page. And the other main buzzword you'll hear in this series is areas. Areas are these sections of a page template you can put blocks into. So for example, on this demo site, we have an area here called main, which currently contains an empty content block and a full one above that. And we have another area down here called main full width, which is what contains this box of grids, some kind of list block it seems. Now your templates may vary. You might have, for example, a sidebar off to the side of the page, which is its own dedicated area for placing content off to the side and so on. But the main point being that there are areas of a page you can put blocks into, and blocks are the things you put into them. In this case, we have what's known as a content block. So if we click on this and choose edit block, we get what looks like a word processor. And that's because this is an instance of what's called a content block. If I had found a YouTube video embed or a Google Map embed, for example, or maybe some sort of list like the one further down this page, and tried clicking on it, that would be some other kind of block, and I would get a different interface. So for example, looking at this list down here, if I click on this and again choose edit block, I get an interface about editing what's called a page list. So we can infer that that's some kind of dynamically made list of pages based on some rules defined in here. So the main point to note here is that regardless of what kind of blocks you encounter on existing pages with existing content, it's always going to be a matter of just clicking it, choosing edit, and then what comes up next is going to be the appropriate thing for the kind of block you've clicked on. So in this case, with this content block, I get given a word processor, so I'll just type in a line of text at the top like I wanted. And then from there, we'll press whatever save or OK button is available with this block type. So in this case, it's just a blue OK button. And that will update the change on screen for us now. So the first point to note here is, whilst I'm making changes inside of this edit session, nothing is getting put live right away or anything. All of this is happening just on my screen. So no matter how big or small the change, be it just a line of text or lots of different changes across the breadth of the page, it's all just happening on my screen until I try to leave edit mode. So with this top left button, it's good as a rule of thumb to keep in mind that the edit process for a page starts with this top left button and it also ends with this top left button. Everything in between is just happening on your own device, on your own screen, and nothing is getting saved outright. So with this change I've made ready, I'll try to leave edit mode. And if I had done nothing, I would just leave and see the page normally again. But the CMS has detected that I've changed something, in this case that line of text, so I get given this interface. So let's talk through each of these pieces one at a time. Version comments, as you can probably infer from this, means that there's a version history for pages every time a new version gets made, like the one I'm doing right now. We'll see things in the version log later on in this video, things like what date the version was made, which user account or admin account made that version, and ideally, as a good habit, what kind of comment they left behind to describe the version they made. So this is extra helpful if you find yourself in a large team of admins or colleagues who are going to be working on the same sort of pages as you, so that it makes a much cleaner audit trail to, if needed, go through the version logs and see who made what and when, and so on and so forth. So with that, I'll just leave a example comment like so. And then let's talk through these next few buttons. So we have this blue button called Publish Changes. What this will do is two things at once. It will both make the brand new version and at the same time also make it the live version that the outside world will see. Whereas Save Changes will just save the new version but not put it live. Now, where this tends to be helpful is if you want to see the page fully outside of edit mode, just to be absolutely sure it looks the way you expect when it's properly but live and outside edit mode. In this case, it's not too much of an important thing to do, but because it's just a single line of text we have here, we can see already. But for some more advanced blocks, like for example, YouTube video embeds and stuff like that, they tend to only render properly and correctly outside of edit mode for technical reasons. So saving your version and previewing it first, just under the view of an admin account, is a good way to just make sure the page looks right. And then discard changes will, as you expect, just scrap our changes and scrap the version draft we've been making so far, and nothing gets made or pushed live. So in order to see this sort of two steps one at a time, making the version, then putting it live, I'll go ahead here and press the Save Changes button. So we've left edit mode and we can see our change on screen, but we're getting a note here whilst logged in as an admin telling us on the bottom right here that this page is a newer version pending approval, which we can infer to mean that the outside world is still seeing the version that doesn't have this line. So with that, we'll just go to this box and we'll press approve. And we'll see the page reloaded again, and we're looking at the page while logged in, and we're seeing no notes about newer versions pending, and we can see our new copy in place there. So we can infer that this is what the outside world is now seeing as well. This is both the latest version and it's marked as the live version to use for everyone to see. Now, as for looking at the version logs, we can do that by going to Page Settings and then navigate over to the Versions tab. And then from here, we can see a history of all the versions that have been made. Basically, every time someone's pressed save or publish, a new version gets made like this. And we see them ordered by the most recent ones at the top. And we also see, most importantly, which one of these many versions is the live one that the outside world is seeing. So in this scenario, version 14 is the version I just made a moment ago. And it's also the live version, so we know that that's the one that the outside world sees. If we press the info button against any of these versions, let's go with this top one, we can see some information about it. We can see what time the page version was made. So in other words, when it was saved. We see ideally what comment the person left behind, who the person was that made that version, and then in case it happens to be someone else or it was done at a different time, what time that version was actually published and put live. So in my case, I pressed save at 14:51. Then a few minutes later, I pressed approve as a blue button, which made the version live later. If you had just pressed publish in the first place, both of these times would be the same, of course. So with that, let's pretend we want to now roll back to a prior version. We could, in theory, just get rid of this line by making a brand new edit and striking it out. But let's pretend there's a very complex sweeping change and it needs to be undone very quickly. Rolling back to an old version is a very convenient way to do that. So let's first of all imagine we need to find out which version we need to go back to. So we can check any of these versions to add them to the preview panel on the right hand side. So let's compare 14 and 13 to each other. With those checked, they'll appear on the right hand side. We can then click into these tabs to view these versions. So we can see version 14 has the line we want to get rid of, and version 13 doesn't have that line. So 13 is our target. So what we'll do to make version 13 the live one is click the three dots on that version, and we'll click approve. And now we see version 13 is the live one. So the outside world is now seeing that. We do still have version 14 as a newer version hanging around in the system, but again, the outside world won't see that because it's not marked as live, but we as admins will get told about it when we view the page, and we'll see that box again saying there's a newer version pending, do you want to approve it? That might be fine. You may want to just use that to have the version be reviewed by colleagues and then tweaked further. But if you want to outright delete a non-live version, you can click on the toolbar here and then choose delete on the version, and now version 14 is gone. And that's the versioning system. So once we reload this page, we'll see the page back on version 13 with no extra line at the top.